Welcome to the Sideload, where we're celebrating the holidays by reuniting with old friends. I'm your host, Will Sattelberg. This week, I'm once again joined by Daniel Bader, my former Android Police podcast host and my neighbor across Lake Ontario. Just really to chat. I don't have a theme this week. We've hit December. I do have themes planned that I hope work out depending on guests coming up. But this week, I just figured Daniel and I could fill 45-ish minutes and have a good chat. So, Daniel, welcome to the show.
How the turns table?
I know.
Or is it the turntables?
It's one of those. Is this where I just alienate half the audience by being like, I'm not a big Office fan? Is this where I just ruin the
I think
the
so.
show?
I don't know where
I'm
it
sorry.
came from, actually. So I didn't know that was an Office reference.
I know it from The Office. I know it as a Michael Scott. Yeah.
Probably.
Well, I mean, The Office, very, very popular show.
Influential.
I watched it.
In many ways.
Like, it's funny. There was a tweet going around about praising the NBC Thursday night lineup of the 2010s, where it was Community and Parks and Rec and The Office and 30 Rock.
Yeah.
And then like somebody else retweeting it, which was my initial thought when I saw it, where I was like, none of you watched this. All of these shows were constantly on the bubble of being canceled, including The Office, which didn't actually get big, like truly big until it was over and had hit streaming. That's how I feel about it. Where I was there, and I was in high school. Where were all of you? Where were you supporting these shows? You know, Community got canceled three times.
I got a wrench to throw into this this meme.
Yeah.
So there are I'm going to say 4 major Android sites out there. Which one is 9 to 5 Google in that list of Thursday night lineup? Which one is Android Central? Which one is Android Authority? And which one is Android Police?
That's great.
You don't have to answer it right now, but it's something to noodle on.
No. The joys of editing this is that I can cut this down later. I also can untangle my headphone cord from the cat that is laying in my lap. Okay. Android Central, Android Authority, Android Police, 9 to 5 Google. The problem is that I've just set myself up to label one of them one I don't like by labeling it The Office. And you are trying to get me in trouble here.
Exactly. This is so as somebody who, I think I'm the only person on Earth who's worked at 3 of these 4 sites now.
Well, let's talk about that then. What news do you have, Daniel? I said no news. I said no theme, but that doesn't mean there's no news.
No theme, but unless you count me being the theme.
Yes, exactly.
Because I'm that important. I have a Substack now, so clearly I'm that important. So I have, you and I know each other because we met when I was the editor-in-chief of Android Police, briefly.
Yep. You started there about 7 months after I started there.
Right, in 2021. Yeah. So that came from me working at Android Central for 5 years, and I'd always loved and admired Android Police. I was very lucky to work there, and then I kind of moved away from the editor-in-chief role and then worked as a content director for a long time. And then in 2025, while still hosting the AP podcast because they couldn't tear it away from my cold dead hands, became somebody.
I also wouldn't let you quit. I was like, who am I going to do this show with if not you?
So I ended up working in ad sales and commerce, affiliate, sponsorships, licensing. That kind of helped out the editorial team, but was pretty much firewalled from it in terms of what I was doing. So
we only talked on like recording days.
Yeah.
and unless we were talking about some kind of news piece that we were both interested in, or like a list, like a ranking of music or something, we would just be like, we recording today? Cool.
Yeah. And the thing about that was in the tech space, and I think this is a bit of inside baseball that I'm happy to share. This tension between commerce and editorial has been there forever, right? Ever since the affiliate link was created, and ever since the sponsored article was created, content, the kind of that kind of like I wouldn't say content let's say SEO content, for lack of a better term. Ever since that was sort of identified as a way for brands to sort of blur the line, that has been something that editorial has always had some tension with, right? And I like that tension because at the end of the day, I think it is one of the ways in which you can keep the internet relatively healthy, right? Programmatic ads are ruining the internet's accessibility. It's they're kind of making it much harder and less pleasant to read long form content.
Right.
I think augmenting programmatic ads with other forms of revenue is healthy, right? It's not something that everybody loves, but it's become one of those accepted and understandable realities of the internet. So when I think about my role, and this is where I get to what I'm doing now. I'm the sales director for 9 to 5 Google, which means that I'm going to be bringing in non-programmatic revenue, right? Which means I'm going to be working on behalf of the company to find partners, sponsors that are hopefully going to put their names on this podcast and on the website and on Damien and Jordan's videos and anything else that we can do. So why is this important? Well, I think truthfully, 9 to 5 Google is one of the last few great independent blogs out there. And I'm not just talking about like Android blogs or tech blogs. I'm talking about like the way internet. That, like the way that this network is set up. It is set up to be a bunch of experts who report on things they genuinely love out of a commitment, not to the brands, not to the money, but to the readers. And my job, I hope, and I hope I do a good job of that, is to not alienate that relationship, but to enhance it by finding partners and sponsors that you, the listener, and you, the reader, and you, the watcher, actually give a shit about and care enough about clicking on our links and entering those, codes or whatever to say, this makes sense. And the best brand integrations are the ones that you don't hate, right? You're never going to love a brand integration, but they're the ones that you don't hate. And as somebody who's been on the editorial side for over a decade, I think it's a huge responsibility and something that I'm excited about because I know how important 9 to 5 Google is to the people that read it every day. And now that I've gotten a bit of kind of a behind the scenes look at it, I know how many of those people come every single day to the homepage. And that homepage is like, it's an amazing spot. So
I mean, you're echoing a lot of the reasons, and I haven't talked super publicly about this, but like a lot of the other reasons that I was drawn to 9 to 5 Google as well, like very similar ideas of caring about websites and the internet and the health of the internet and homepages. I'm still at my heart a homepage person. The problem is there are no homepages anymore. Like I want to,
there's like 4 homepages.
I cycle through all 4 all day. I just keep hitting the bookmarks on my bookmarks bar. And I think you and I both like have enjoyed aspects of social media over the years, maybe not as much recently, but aspects of it. But social media never replaced that feeling of loading up a homepage on a random morning, right? And like reading something new for me. And I'm sure you were the same way. And, 9 to 5, the entire network really has held steady in an ecosystem that has otherwise, tried to replace that sort of feeling, and in a way has, slowly started to come back around to it through smaller, worker owned, places like Aftermath or 404 or Remap, right? The list goes on. And a lot of those places usually have almost all of those places have come out of Defector, burning wrecks of old websites where everybody was either fired or laid off, or they sold the site. And these writers or editors didn't agree with new management or so on and so forth. And like the magic of 9 to 5 in general to me, and why I wanted to come work here and write here and produce podcasts here, is that like it's the old internet way, but still standing amongst these like other publications that have like tried to come back to it, but without all of the like pain and damage in its wake. So I don't know. I've really enjoyed my, and that was the joke I was going to make, is that it's been about 6 months since I started here, and Daniel just won't stop following me to these websites. But yeah, man, I'm really happy to have you here, and hopefully you and I can maybe appear on stuff like this show right here more, or whatever. And we could talk about the other thing that you and I have been talking about maybe at the end of the show if we wanted to tease it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I think having you here makes 9 to 5 Google a better, healthier website, and I'm very excited for what 2026 is going to bring.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm interested in kind of, so you and I'm not going to talk about my previous employer because sure. I don't think it's in my best interest in a lot of ways. But I will say that I've been through a bunch of sites that were embodiments of independent publishing going through acquisitions and being sort of squeezed in many ways. I've been through that in a lot of situations. I've seen the results. And all of the lip service is just exactly that. Right? All of the press releases, all of the promises, they amount to the very opposite every single time of what those purchasers purport to bring, right? They purport to bring scale. They purport to bring a technological leap in terms of tools. But ultimately, even if those things are true, right, the artistic integrity is seemingly always sacrificed in some way.
Certainly bottom of the list, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I like and what I've always admired about 9 to 5 is as they have grown, the network as a whole and Google in particular, there has always been this understanding that the audience, that the people reading are the most important thing, and that the writers, Ben, Abner, back in the day, Kyle and many others were there to enhance people's understanding of, in this case, their Android phone or Google ecosystem or whatever, wholly for their benefit, right? And it's not to say that I've not worked with people who are equally passionate about teaching and inspiring. But I've only worked one place, and it was like in the early days of Mobile Nations, back in like 2016 through like 2018, where that true independence was possible.
Yeah.
Because the ownership structure allowed for it. So yeah, I mean, just all that is to say, like, I am hoping that the money that I bring in will allow 9 to 5 Google to grow and thrive and offer better products and more products and just make the site better in every meaningful way. And like, I'm hoping that if people listening to this and reading the site have ideas of the kinds of things that they want to see, but we just haven't had the resources to provide them, like, let me know. Send me an email, Daniel@9to5google.com, and I will I will listen. Yeah, so I'm excited, and I'll hopefully be doing some editorial things as well that don't, have anything to do with what I'm doing on the other side, particularly like podcasting and writing the occasional review or editorial. But other than that, like, I'm just here to vibe, man.
Well, you're here to vibe, and you're here to kind of, as you've sort of said, like, make it easier for the site to make the things people that read and listen and watch the site already enjoy. And so I don't know, like, I'm really excited about like where we're going to go from here, because, it's the internet is in a really weird spot right now. And I think a lot of very rich people with investments and across the internet want it to be as sterilized and as impersonal a site, or perhaps personal, but in a way that is automated and lacks authenticity as possible. And when I write something, or when I make this show, or when I'm on Pixelated, like, I'm making the thing that I would want to read or listen to, right? And I hope that comes through in everything I do, because if that passion isn't there, if I'm just writing something or producing something just to do it, then that apathy is going to bleed through. So I don't know. I'm very excited that like this opportunity exists for you to come in and play like a big role in it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I have a question for you. How has your writing changed, or the way that you approach what you're writing about changed from your previous role to this one? Because you're writing about similar things, but I suspect like the background processes are slightly different.
It's a little less, this is going to sound so weird. It's a little less organized, which somehow makes it more fruitful. I feel like because I'm giving myself a little bit more freedom to write something that I'm like truly passionate about, or to allow these ideas to like hit me. I think they're reading better on paper. And actually, even more than that, and this is something that I was thinking about genuinely like yesterday, is that I think my writing has gotten less negative over the last like 6 months. Like I've noticed, I was looking at either the first or second editorial that I wrote at 9 to 5 today, like as we're recording this, to link back to in a story about the Exynos 2600. And I like skimmed through it, and I didn't have a problem with the piece necessarily, but I was like, this feels really, maybe not unfairly negative, but it is a little mean. It is a little like angry in a way that like I feel like I've mellowed out a little bit and allowed myself to, because I'm trying to be a little bit more choosy on technology and what I currently care about. And that's not to say there's a lot of things I don't care about, but there's maybe things that if I have feelings about it, maybe they verge on negative. And I don't think that the internet needs that necessarily, or that I'm improving or offering a good take by just being negative for the sake of trying to have a take. And so, the last couple of editorials I've wrote have been about like accessories that I've genuinely enjoyed using and thought people would like. I wrote about this Anker power bank that I tried for the first time at CES last year, right? It's been almost a full year, and I have like not stopped being kind of obsessed with this thing and how like well it fits into my life as like a battery I can just have next to me if I'm playing my Switch 2 and it needs to charge, or if I'm traveling, and it can also kind of act as like a travel hub, like a charger hub, in addition to being a battery, like something like that, where I'm really excited about it, as opposed to just being like, I'm annoyed that Samsung didn't change enough on the S25, which I might be, but like, I don't, that's a tweet really. And so like, I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at, is that I feel a little bit more positive and in tune with what I'm trying to write about.
Yeah, I think the pressure, so the internet itself, the way that content discovery has changed over the years has made it more fruitful to be negative, particularly if you are writing frequently. So as an algorithm curates your content, if you're writing 6 posts a week, 4 of them should probably be negative because they will have a higher likelihood of being seen by more people.
Right.
Whereas if you're only writing once a week, the algorithm knows that. And I'm saying this across the board, but in particular, Google Discover, you're not under the same amount of pressure to write about your complaints. And I think that is just a testament to, first of all, just like a healthier culture, but also the fact that like when you're bogged down by the thing that you love, it's really hard to continue loving it. Yeah. Right. And I think when this tension that we in this industry have between loving the products and loving the ability to write and report on these products with the need to make money writing about those products and using those products, that tension gets so hard when discoverability is squeezed to the extent it is right now. So, I mean, I just look at YouTube thumbnails and titles hours after they appear and how many of them are different. And they start out being, relatively positive or straightforward. And as time goes on, they get more and more negative or more extreme, right? And then they'll probably settle on something that is, to the extent to which the algorithm will reward it, like pretty negative or pretty extreme. And the fact that you don't have to do that here, I think is a huge, just like, it's just healthier in many ways.
Yeah, I'm starting to think these algorithms are bad, Daniel.
I don't know about you, but
oh man, it's funny. I it's Spotify. What is it called? Wrapped. Spotify Wrapped Week. It's Apple Music Replay Week, and I can't remember the YouTube Music one. And You Can't Make Me. Is it called Flashback? It's got to be a third one, right? It's probably also called Wrapped or Replay or something. I was looking, I switched to Apple Music at some point, but for at least for most of the year, if not the entire year, I've been on Apple Music because Spotify was driving me crazy for several reasons. Mm-hmm. And I've enjoyed Apple Music largely speaking as a platform. It's got its own shortcomings, but I think they're more navigable than Spotify. I was really taken aback because I was like, I feel like I've listened to at least a little more new music than this year. And my top 10 artists are just like what I've been listening to for like a decade. And I'm like, is the algorithm just like not helping me on these platforms anymore? You and I have joked many times about my enjoyment of Sirius XM and how I have discovered plenty of new bands and artists and songs I never would have heard there if not for an actual like human DJ putting them on. But like genuinely, I feel like if you added like the stuff that I've heard on Sirius XM into the mix, like my top 10 would look a lot different and would at least have like a couple artists in there that are like new this year or I had not listened to a lot previously. But like, clearly when I have just like fully given up, like it's not even me, because I do use like the tuned algorithm or algorithmically driven playlists on Apple Music. So it's not like I'm not using those tools and features that exist to theoretically introduce me to new music. It's just that like none of them are really offering me anything anyway. When I click on like my personalized station or whatever, it's just the same like 100 songs over and over again. And so I end up with this Spotify or this Apple Music replay that just feels like it could say 2022 on it. And I'd be like, yeah, probably was listening to a lot of LCD Sound System and Carly Rae Jepsen in 2022. That sounds like something I would do.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when a robot recommends something to you and you end up listening or watching or reading something that you dislike, you're much more likely to off ramp than if you are listening or watching or reading something that was specifically curated for you by somebody that you trust. Because at the end of the day, even if you don't like the thing, you like the person and you associate that person with some sort of expertise, right? So with me, like when I would ask my friends to make me mix CDs, or if I were in the early days, like to seek out bespoke MP3 playlists, there were, 90% of the stuff I wouldn't know. But even with something like Spotify Discover or the Apple Discover playlist, it's not really reaching that far into the sort. It's not reaching out of your comfort zone too much. And even if it is, it's still a robot giving me recommendations, and I'm much less likely to stay in that like ecosystem because of it. So yeah, I mean, that's why I keep coming back to the fact that like the blog is the only thing that I can trust on the internet, because when I read some recommendation by, you or Ben or Abner or Andrew, like I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it. I'll buy it. I'll take it into consideration because you guys know your shit. And that's true of basically any Substack that I subscribe to or any subscription that I give money to, right? Like, why you are giving these people money. And it's like, it's a different feeling than giving Netflix $7 a month. Like, I give Netflix $7 a month because my child would murder me if I didn't.
K-pop Demon Hunters. Where else are you going to watch it?
But I don't do it out of like this idea that the algorithm will surface something that I desperately need to watch. Yeah. In fact, that hasn't been the case for a decade. No. So yeah, I totally understand what you're talking about.
We picked up another year. It's been a year or two since we were subscribed, but it was such a good deal. We picked up a year of Criterion Channel for
hell yeah. See, that's the kind of curation that I like.
Yeah, it was like $75 for a year or something like that, $80 maybe, and they put together these collections, and obviously it's going to be a little bit limited by whatever they can or cannot license, but they put these collections together that are themed and that rotate every month and that feel very like specifically tuned to that, time of year maybe, or whatever, or, you can better link something to like, oh, it's Christmas time or it's the holiday season, so I'm watching these movies or whatever, right? Like I think they just added Tokyo Godfathers, for example, right? Something like that. That is explicitly set during the holidays. But also since the last time I subscribed, they have added a like 24/7, like just stream of just like whatever's on the platform right now. That is very like TCM coded to me. Yeah. It is so
without all the commercials,
but it's so primitive that it's literally just like, it's just a button in the app, in the streaming app. And to even see what's actually playing, you have to go to, there's like a separate website called like what's playing.criterionchannel.com or something like that. That like, it's so like, we're just streaming a random movie. It's whatever's on right now. And the website will just tell you like title and when the next movie's starting, but it doesn't even tell you what the next movie is. It just tells you in like 90. It's great. No, I check it out all the time just to be like, what's on right now, in a very cable-esque way. Go ahead.
I mean, that's what like the TV Guide was.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Like the idea that you would stumble upon a movie on HBO prior to being able to stream it.
It's my favorite part of going to hotels, by the way. I truly, and Daniel, you'll see this in Vegas because we're both going to CES. But like if I have the TV on, or when I get to a hotel room, I like don't plug my laptop in. I don't bring like a stream. Like I know Ben brings like a streaming stick with him. I leave myself at the whims of cable television in hotels. Like the only reason I've seen 17 again is because I had a night to kill in Vegas like 2 years ago. I was there for like an extra day during CES, and I was like, I'm here. I guess I'm just watching 17 again in this hotel room.
Hell yeah.
But like a movie I wouldn't have watched otherwise, that like there's something to be said for that, for leaving it up to the whims of chance and whatever's been, and it's it's not as interesting anymore, right? Like as in terms of what's actually been programmed. Although you can still kind of find that. We're big Pluto TV fans, and I don't know if Pluto TV is in Canada, Daniel.
It exists, yeah.
Perfect. But it's it's, in my opinion, the best fast service because not only did they have like a wide selection of cable like channels, but like the amount of movie you there's always at least one good movie on. It's almost always No Country for Old Men, which is just always on one of the channels. But at the very least, there is like a good thing that somebody has picked and programmed onto that service. I feel the same, to come back to writing a little bit. I feel the same way about reviews of anything. I've always, as someone raised on the internet, I've always felt this way about the argument between professional critics or professional reviewers versus user reviews. I've never been, and this is not me talking from a place of privilege of someone who is like a professional tech reviewer in some way. But it, even since I was in like middle school, I've always felt like there is something to be said for the professional critic, not because they're better than you, but because you can pinpoint someone who has your taste or shares your values or what you're looking for in art or technology or anything like that, and follow along with them. So I have my, collection of reviewers that there are reviewers I don't agree with who I read because I think they're good writers. And then there are reviewers that I agree with often and can typically trust their recommendation. And when I hear people complain about, don't listen to the critics, what do they know? It's like, well, like, no, you're using like your Rotten Tomatoes brained. Like, don't do that. Like, find the people you like and like read their criticism. Like, follow them on Letterboxd or whatever. Like, there's ways to do that where you are getting a personalized recommendation, but because you've read this person's writing, it's from someone you can trust and know that they're going to share similar, and that's not just art. It's smartphones. If you didn't like my OnePlus 15 review because you don't have the same critiques I have of Oxygen OS, don't listen to that part of my review. That's totally fine. That's valid. If the battery life is all you care about, you're going to have a great time with that phone. And so that's sort of how I feel about writing on the internet, is that we'd all be a little bit better if we just pinpointed the people that we wanted to read and kept up with them.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth mentioning, like, there are a number of situations, phones being a good example, where it's hard to buy a bad phone, which makes it much harder to review a phone these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Every phone's a 7 out of 10, like minimum,
at least,
unless it's like, you can find a random, $130 unlocked Amazon or Android phone on Amazon. But like, if you're shopping mid-range or higher, basically everything starts at a 7 out of 10 and goes up from there. And yeah, I agree with you. It makes finding the nuance more difficult, right? Because like, largely speaking, I felt fairly positive about the OnePlus 15, but I had to get through in my writing that I think it falls short compared to other devices on the market and its direct predecessor, right? Like, I had to be like, I think this is a step backwards for the company, even if I don't think anybody buying this phone is going to be like overly disappointed.
Well, that's how I feel about most commoditized products these days, right? And you don't have to be like a really good writer to try to understand how to provide purchase advice with nuance for something that is commoditized, right?
Right.
But it's increasingly difficult to do that. So, and I think you have to. What it's doing is it's sort of corralling people into more like tighter niches. So to find the nuance in a phone review, you basically have to just review every phone. Similarly with cars, right? Like, if you have if you're extremely knowledgeable, like, I don't know anything about cars. So when I go to find a car to purchase, like, I'm like, okay, I think I want an SUV, go. And to find the review that convinces me to buy whatever, the Genesis or the Acura or the Honda or the Toyota, like, I don't know where to start with that. And you go to the obvious places first, and then you drill down from there. But I think there is an element to what we do that has been so commoditized and made derivative that it's really important to be able to find the nuance in it. But it also, I look at somebody like our friend Michael Fisher, who, when he writes a script for something, he's putting a lot of himself in that thing, you know? And that's as important, if not more so, when you're consuming some review, because it's just so much more enjoyable. It becomes, you're not just on a fact-finding mission, you're trying to provide some sort of entertainment while you're doing it. And
yeah, when you build these parasocial relationships that I think play a part in how you read somebody's review or watch somebody's review, and again, you can build that into how you make your decision. If Michael Fisher doesn't like likes a phone, but his conclusion is like, I'm not going to use it because it's not a foldable, but you don't like foldables, then you probably don't care that his ultimate conclusion is that it's not a phone for him, but it's a good phone. You care that Fisher found that these 5 things worked well, and those are the 5 things you care about. And yeah, I don't know, it makes a difference in how you consume that media.
Let's actually get topical for a second, because I'm
Sure.
curious about your reaction to this. So yesterday, as we're recording this, 2 days ago as we're recording this, Samsung announced the Galaxy Trifold, and that it's coming to Korea soon in December, and it'll be available in the US in Q1 2026.
Yeah.
Then the following morning, a bunch of YouTubers released their videos with a hands-on and unboxing and first impressions, right? And what was really interesting to me was like the uniformity of the opinions and how uninteresting this product is I'm not saying it as like from a technological feat. I'm not saying that. Like, this is an incredible piece of engineering, and I do not want to overstate that.
Yeah.
It is amazing. But just as a product, it's being reviewed in very much the same way as like a regular foldable, as a smartphone, right? You have the unboxing, you have the grand reveal, you have the accessories, you have the, hey, it can do this, and oh, it's a tablet now, it's 10.x inches, and the screen is 1600 nits, and the camera's 200 megapixels. Like, the way that they're approaching this product is identical to the way that they would approach a regular foldable or a slab phone. And yet it's like the language for it should, I think, be quite different, because you're buying what is essentially a Galaxy Tab and a Galaxy S in one,
Right.
for $2,800, whatever it ends up being.
Right.
And I just think, like, I don't know, I don't know how I feel about it really, but I just know that, like, you're talking about how you're a bit more positive on tech since coming to 9 to 5. And I feel like there's this disconnect between folks who get to handle these products on a regular basis being somewhat jaded or taking certain elements of these products for granted, including myself, and somebody who is still kind of awed by the spectacle of it. And I'm sure there are millions of people out there who are. And in seeing the sort of like blasé way that like a trifold for $2,800 is being presented out there, it's I don't know, it's just kind of, it's interesting, because like I don't think we've developed the language required to substantiate what is such an incredible feat of engineering. And yet I totally understand that if you just kind of stand back and look at it, it's a phone and a tablet in one. And like, why the hell would you want this?
I think it would be really difficult for me to review it, even just from like a construction perspective and based on what we know about it already, which is to say, like, okay, so the first time I reviewed a foldable is actually probably not the Pixel Fold, but the Pixel Fold was like the second I think I had reviewed. And because I had used a Z Fold 4, which I maybe didn't review, so maybe it was my first foldable review, whatever. But I had used a Z Fold 4 before and was able to kind of compare and contrast how these two felt with each other, right? And like one of my biggest critiques about the original Pixel Fold, and I had many of them, that was not a phone that I particularly liked, was how heavy it was. It was 283 grams or something like that. And it was just, you could feel it after not even that long of using the phone, 10, 15 minutes in your hand, and you would start to feel like the difference in weight compared to like a non-foldable phone, or even a lighter foldable, like pretty much any other foldable in the market, and certainly now. The trifold is 305, 310 grams, something like that. And I don't have the like language built in me to like judge whether that's heavy or not. Should I dock, if I review this phone, should I dock it for being heavy, or is that actually I know it's not the lightest trifold. I know the Huawei trifold is like 5 or 10 grams lighter, but I can't tell if that's about the level these trifolds should be at, considering the size and shape of them when they're completely unfolded, or if that's, and that's a sacrifice you have to make, or if we're, in 2 years going to have a 250 gram trifold. I have no idea. And how do I make that critique to somebody? I guess I would use it now and be like, well, it's uncomfortable to me now, but you might be able to make that trade-off, but it becomes a very difficult thing to try to convey in an article where there's no competition that you can compare it to. So yeah, I think the trifold is going to be really difficult to review. And to your other point about feeling jaded or no longer as impressed with some of this, one of my favorite things to do, and I hope other reviewers do this too, but I will show, not every phone, but I will show like, people the device I'm using, like non-tech reviewers, non-tech enthusiasts, the device I'm using, just to get like a more, or I guess a less biased take. I was going to say more unbiased, and I get paid to write articles. Jesus Christ. A less biased take on these devices, right? Like, if you didn't pay any money for it, you're not reviewing it, just tell me what you think of the Fold 7 when I hand it to you. And that is able to get me like a little bit more of a normalized take of how people feel about these devices. It's how I know that, like, by far the, and this shows up in studies too, or polls, I guess, but like, by far the thing that has won over like iPhone users the most that I've used is anytime I have a clamshell foldable on me. They're all like, the Razr specifically, they're always like, oh, that's really cool. I could see myself switching to that, more so than any other Android phone I review. I just think it's good context to have, even if it doesn't mean anything for the actual review itself.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that this product in particular, is going to stand out as it's going to be something that is both unsuccessful and unsustainable in terms of what it offers. Because if you look at the sort of arc of foldables in general, as we went into 2019 with the original Fold and the subsequent iteration of it, a lot of folks thought that this would be the next smartphone, right? Everybody would have a foldable. Obviously, that has not turned out to be true. And I think the trifold in general is like the obvious engineering example of where to go next, but it is absolutely not the product example of where we should go next. No. And I think the disconnect there says so much about what you and I on the AP podcast in the past have talked about with Samsung, right?
Right.
Like this maximalism, this like tension between maximalism and like blending engineering prowess with like the engineering comes first and then the product comes second.
Right.
And this company's desire to sort of dominate a particular category, as insignificant as that category may be, And I just think that like this is the wrong direction, frankly, because foldables have not gotten cheaper over the years. In fact, they've gotten more expensive, right? So you're not expanding your potential market here. You're just kind of like providing a larger canvas that alienates.
This is the device for the real sickos. Like Michael Fisher.
Exactly. But it does feel a little bit like we're back to sort of that. Okay, we wanted to celebrate the first generation of something again, just for the sake of being first, without really understanding the purpose of it.
I don't envy anybody working on like developing new smartphones these days, because anytime any of these companies do try something at least even a little bit new, like even right down to, I mean, you could use Apple as like the peak example. I know this is like an Android adjacent show at the very least, but to look at Apple, they've been trying to crack what is this fourth flagship iPhone we sell every year for 5 generations now. What was the first mini? The 12 mini?
Yeah.
So 6 generations, but they did the iPhone 12 and 13 mini, and then the 14 and 15 and 16 plus, right?
Plus, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. And now the Air, which doesn't have a 17 in front of it, but takes that spot regardless. And it doesn't sound like, the mini they stopped making because nobody was buying it, and nobody was buying the Plus either. That was the bottom of the 4. And it doesn't seem like the Air is selling particularly well compared to the rest of the lineup. And whether or not that's because people don't want thin phones, or the iPhone 17 is just too good of a value, which it is if you were shopping for an iPhone. I don't know. It's tricky. And we've seen Samsung struggle with kind of the same idea with the Edge series, and apparently just completely like throwing away the plans they had to shake up the S26 series and go back to something a little bit more standard and more familiar. And I don't even know if people really want their phones shaken up, or if they, they're just upgrading every 4 or 5 years at this point, and they don't really care because it's enough improvements, between, my dad's about to upgrade his iPhone 12 to probably an iPhone 17, and he will have a much better experience on that new hardware. It will feel like a bigger leap than maybe it otherwise is on paper. And so I don't know. I do not envy anybody trying to like figure out what gets people excited about smartphones again, because I don't think we've seen it, and I don't think it will be obvious to us until it happens. Or maybe the smartphone will be replaced, or maybe this is just how we are now. We just have this for the next 20 years until there's some other massive leap technologically speaking.
This is when we talk about AI, but I'd prefer not to.
Yeah. AI is too big of a conversation maybe to jump into, but we can leave that for next time. That's where we'll pick things up the next time you're on the show. Daniel, thank you for coming on and having an inside baseball conversation that I think nevertheless I think people will really enjoy, this like peek behind the curtain and our thoughts on media in general, I suppose. Where can, well, actually let's do this, because it's gonna 2 birds, 1 stone. Where can people find you, and also what's making you happy this week?
Well, I'm sort of inching my way back online after years of not doing it. So I'm not, I'm hoping to be a bit more public on things like Threads and Blue Sky. I'm at Journey Dan on Threads. I think I'm at Bader on Blue Sky. I don't know why, but I just launched my newsletter. It's called Making Us Happy, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, because I like this idea that we don't really take stock of the small things in life that make us happy anymore. And I think it's worth taking a minute or in my case, a few hours every week to sort of journal in public about it and hopefully build a community around that. You and I talked about what's making us happy at the end of every Android Police podcast, and it was genuinely like one of my favorite things to do because it forced me to do exactly that, to take stock of whatever, whether it was like a book or piece of music or a movie or like something my kid did.
I was going to say, sometimes it was just a thing that you did like over the weekend. Yeah.
And it's kind of nice because it's like I'm journaling in public, and I really haven't done that since like live journal days. Yeah. And I think it's very cathartic. And I think as somebody who has rediscovered the value of community over the last year or so, that's more important to me than ever. So yeah, I started a newsletter. It's on Substack. It's called Making Us Happy. I'm publishing there every Thursday, and I hope to eventually start a podcast with you called Making Us Happy, where we do exactly that for an entire show. So it would be a weekly show about movies, music, TV shows, books, and other ephemera.
Anything else? Yeah.
That strikes us that week. But one thing I loved about the last few years was podcasting with you, and that brought me a lot of joy. So I'm desperate to keep that going in whatever way possible, even if it's not affiliated with 9 to 5. It's just a side project,
our own silly little project that we'll be launching. I don't know. Soon.
We've basically spent the whole year talking about this, but it's gonna happen.
Every like 2 months. We're like, we should do that. We should get the ball rolling. We should actually get the ball rolling and maybe try to launch it.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I have more incentive now to do it. So
there we go. Yeah. And I'll put it'll be in the show at some point. Whenever it launches, it'll be public. We'll yell about it on the internet. That's the whole reason to use social media, is just to yell about the thing that you're making online. Yeah, man. Daniel, thank you for coming on. Always good to talk to you. Always good to work with you. Very excited to have you back in the 9 to 5 family, I should say. Thank you for having me back.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening or watching. I hope this was enjoyable. Truly, I was not joking that this episode was not going to have a theme. I came in with just like 6 or 7 questions I could ask Daniel if we ran out of things to talk about. And I didn't touch one of them. We did not touch. We got a little close a couple of times. But mostly, I was going to talk about Spotify Wrapped. That was one of my questions, and we sort of touched on it. But yeah, this has been great. I don't know who's next, but it's I do have some irons in the fire, so I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna call my shot. The next episode will be, and I'll just fill it in if this person gets booked. The next episode will be
James Beckham,
and we'll be talking about
the biggest tech stories of 2025.
There we go. I'm waiting to confirm it, but you never know. It could happen or not. We'll see. It'll if I cut this, that's why.
I can't wait to hear talking about next week.
I'm trying to book Joe Biden. He's coming on. Talk about when he was president. I don't know.
Oh, God.
I'm just picking a random name. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Share the show with a friend. Lots of big stuff planned for the rest of the year. And then some kind of live CES show, I think, just because there will be a bunch of us there from 9 to 5, and we have a suite in a hotel. So
that'll be fun.
A fun little recording place, and I have to figure out the logistics on that and the amount of microphones I need.
Table.
Oh, it's the best. So it might be, I don't know. I have to think about what that show is, but there will be some kind of CES special, I think the week after CES, that I think will be really fun. So keep your eyes out for that. But that's a month away. So until then, please rate, review, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.